To speak frankly, I don't have any speech, but only some remarks. And I will start maybe from the first remark. There is one very famous former American commander, and he explains that in the Middle East we are facing three challenges: Iran, Iran, and Iran. And I can only to repeat and to confirm this approach. First of all, the first challenge, of course, it's the Iranian nuclear ambitions and ballistic missiles program and the smuggling of weapons, very sophisticated weapons, to every problematic place in the Middle East, and their new desire to manufacture guided missiles in every problematic place. It doesn't matter if it's Yemen or Lebanon or Syria. The second challenge, it's of course their efforts to undermine stability in every country in the Middle East. We can start with Bahrain, from Bahrain to Yemen, from Yemen to Lebanon, from Lebanon to Syria. And I think that, of course, their main destination, it's at the end of the day, it's Saudi Arabia. And I will be happy to hear my colleague or Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia. And of course, the third problem, it's their pattern of behavior to create proxy in every place. In Lebanon, we have Hezbollah. In Gaza Strip, we have Islamic Jihad and Hamas. We have the Houthi militias. In Yemen, we have Shia militias. In Iraq, etc., etc. And of course, all of this activity under umbrella of the biggest and most powerful and brutal and sophisticated terror organization in the world, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, under control of the terrorist number one in the world, Qasem Soleimani. But regardless Israel, if I try to understand what happened, what we have seen since the signing nuclear deal between the P5+1 and Iran. First of all, it's a competition organized in Tehran for the best Holocaust denial cartoon with the first prize of $50,000. We saw a parade in the center of Tehran showing of ballistic missiles with a Hebrew inscription that said, "Israel must be wiped out." We saw a State Department report in the last August on global terrorism, which clearly stated that Iran is a top state sponsor of terror in the world. Just a few days ago, we saw a wild mob in downtown Tehran crying out, "Death to America," and "Death to Israel," and burning US and Israeli flags. Iran is developing ballistic missiles contrary to UN Security Council Resolution 2231 and has strong cooperation with North Korea. As a matter of official policy, Iran persecutes its ethnic and religious minorities and jails journalists, students, activists, and civil society figures. Close to 600 people were executed by the regime in 2016, in this year, with little or no due legal process, the highest execution rate in the world. And of course, it's a clear picture, and maybe the new in the Middle East, if you ask me what is the biggest news in the Middle East, I think that the first time since 1948 that moderate Arab world, Sunni world, they understand that the biggest threat for them, it's not Israel, not Jews, and not Zionism, but Iran and Iranian proxy. And it's also opportunity. we open for regional dialogue, not dialogue as Mr. Zarif mentioned, but completely different dialogue. And I think that the ball on their court today. But it's clear that real division today in the Middle East, it's not Jews, not Muslims, not Christians, but moderate people against radical people, or radical people against moderate people. And my vision, our vision today, to create this coalition of all moderate people in the Middle East to overcome this radical tendency, radical people, terrorist organizations, and I hope that at the end of the day we will succeed. Thank you.
So, Minister Liberman, you have started by telling us, as we understand, you told Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense Mattis, when you met him, that the problem as you see it in the region is Iran, Iran, Iran. What are you calling for? Is it sanctions, as we heard in the last session, or are you looking at military pressure? What is on the table?
I think it's open, yeah. It's a combination of economic pressure, it's a very tough policy, and of course to impose all decisions, all resolutions of Security Council. For example, the ballistic missiles, all their program with ballistic missiles. It's clear that today we suffered in the last period from the lack of political will and determination. And we discussed many times about soft power. I think that the results of soft power we see today in the Middle East. It's not only regarding Iran.
But the former U.S. administration, Secretary of State Kerry, Wendy Sherman is here, dealt with one of the big problems in the region, the Iran nuclear program, through negotiations. Javad Zarif started our morning calling for dialogue. Is there no option to try to discuss a way out of this crisis?
I think it was an attempt to avoid reality. We have clear results of very similar deal with North Korea. And
some actually say there should be a deal with North Korea.
The Iranian deal, it's copy-paste what we had with North Korea. And we see what the results in North Korea. And no doubt, if you ask every people, every man, every woman in the Middle East, everybody understands that Iran will be another example of North Korean deal.
Now, what we understand Iran wants, we heard it from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he went to the White House. He's talking about a broader coalition which involves Israel and Arab states. But when you talk to Arab states, they say, we cannot work with Israel on this until you solve what is still the core issue for them, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We heard from President Trump, one state, two state, whatever the parties like. What do you like?
I can speak about my position. And maybe, it will be a very long explanation.
Well, I think we all know the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Because Palestinian conflict, it's very interesting. Today we have, and I completely agree with some colleagues, very bad right-wing, tough right-wing government. The question, what happened with all previous governments? We had very dovish governments. We had Ehud Olmert, and I see here Tzipi Livni, and we had Ehud Barak and Ariel Sharon, and Tzipi Livni, she met with Abu Mazen in Annapolis, and everything was, ready for the huge ceremony in White House. At the last moment, Mahmoud Abbas refused to sign a final status agreement.
But let's go to 2017 February. And, what is on your agenda now?
It was the same with Arafat and Ehud Barak in Camp David, etc., etc. My vision, it's the end game, no doubt, two-state solution. I believe that what is necessary for us to keep the Jewish state. And I think also regarding the Jewish state and Palestinian state, there is a huge misunderstanding. My biggest problem that today on the table we have a proposal. We will establish very homogenic Palestinian state without even one Jew, and we will become binational state with more than 20% of population the Palestinians. I think that the basic principle of solution must include exchange of land and population. It doesn't make sense to create one homogenic Palestinian state and binational state Israel. It's one problem. And of course, the other problem, Palestinians, they don't have capacity to sign alone a final status agreement with Israel. It's possible only as a part of all regional solution. Not the incremental process, but simultaneously. We must sign simultaneously on the regional solution with Arab world and Palestinians.
So you like this idea of going back to the original proposal put forward by Saudi Arabia many years ago, which never got off the ground, a broader Arab-Israeli?
I speak many times about this vision, part of course, Arab League initiative, Saudi Arabia initiative. There are some positive paragraphs. There are paragraphs that they completely unacceptable for us, like issue of refugees, etc. But today, at least, there is understanding that the biggest problem of the Middle East, it's not a Palestinian issue. With all due respect to our dispute with the Palestinians. But it
still is an issue to resolve, and you would agree? Yes.
I think it's an issue, but it's, in the past it was very easy to explain all problems of the Arab world because we have Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Today it's clear that there are no ties between, uprising in Tunisia or civilian war in Syria or Libya and the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. I think the opposite, with all problems, we keep situation with the Palestinians under control. It doesn't look like in Syria or in Libya or in Yemen.
Well, as President Obama used to say, the status quo is not sustainable, but it is a new administration. Just to give us a sense of what all of you are thinking, since President Trump has said, let's choose a solution, of course, what Israelis and Palestinians want, but what does the international community want? How many here in this room still believe that a two-state solution is the best way forward to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And see, believe these hands way up. Well, Minister Lieberman, they agree with you, a two-state solution. I'm sorry we have to end it, but thank you very much.
The problem is that they don't vote in Israel.
No, I don't think. I think we've gone beyond that, certainly at the Munich Security Forum. Okay. Minister Lieberman, we're very grateful to have you. Thank you very much for your intervention. Thank you very much. Join me, please, in